and Federal Affairs, and our new director of the Massachusetts Military Asset and Security Strategies Task Force, Adam Freudberg, who is also represented here today. All the veterans who are joining us, thank you. It's good to see you. Thank you for your service. I also want to thank today especially Mel Bloom. Mel runs the 350 Girls organizations, and she's the executive director of 350. She's also an Air Force veteran and a curator of this exhibit. The 350 Girls, let me tell you about them, okay? 350, it's an amazing group. They're veterans committed to preserving and sharing the stories of women who served in our military. This is something that we celebrate here today and we support every day. And we thank veterans, as always, for taking the lead and showing us the way. We're honored to host this exhibit in the State House. This is appropriate because Massachusetts, we're the birthplace of democracy for this country, and we have a proud military history. It's a democracy, remember, that owes everything to our veterans and those who served. So we're honored that we could host this today right here in the State House, and not just in the State House, but in this executive suite, the governor's office. This is a place where members of the public come and go throughout the course of the day, and we think it's really important for the members of the public who come into this building to be able to see this wonderful exhibit that Mel has put together. These are the uniforms of the Women Army Corps, or WAC, from World War II through 1978, when WAC was eventually integrated into the U.S. Army. Today, we celebrate the woman whose leadership actually created WAC, and that is Massachusetts Congresswoman Edith Nourse Rogers. Edith Nourse Rogers was the first woman elected to the Congress from Massachusetts and the seventh Congresswoman in United States history. She served for 35 years, from 1925 to 1960. Until recently, she was the longest serving Congresswoman ever. Most important is what she did, and she championed veterans. She sponsored the GI Bill for returning veterans, delivering opportunities that created our post-war middle class in America. She also sponsored the bill that created WAC, giving hundreds of thousands of talented women a way to serve their country in wartime and beyond. We could not be more proud that Edith Nourse Rogers is from Massachusetts. So this exhibit is truly meaningful. In fact, it's really important. Knowing our full history is essential to understanding not only how we got here, but also the issues that we face today, especially now when history itself and our veteran heroes are under attack. It's hard to believe, but the Trump administration has been taking down, deleting from its website, thousands of photographs of veterans and service members, simply because they are women, they are Black, Latino, Asian, Native American, or LGBT. I saw this last night, this report for the first time, that our Trump administration, the U.S. Department of Defense, has removed from its website photographs, images of women veterans, of Black veterans, of others who have served this country, this nation, with distinction for years. This also comes at a time where we've seen so many veterans fired. We've seen the firing of federal workers across the board, not just at the VA, but across all agencies. And remember, a third of our federal workforce are veterans. So this is really, really terrible what's happening to veterans and members of the military right now in our country. It's a shocking way of treating men and women who have served. But to be clear, we're going to do things differently here in Massachusetts. We're going to celebrate our veterans. We're going to honor our veterans. Today, we honor our women veterans, and we're going to continue to find ways to deliver. It's why we went after and passed the HERO Act, the most comprehensive pro-veterans legislation, I believe, in the entire country, certainly in the history of Massachusetts. And it's why we're going to continue to ensure that veterans and women veterans receive the recognition and the resources that they deserve. So as we open this exhibit and celebrate Edith Nourse Rogers, we pledge that future generations will know the women who served this country, and we will honor all of our military service members and veterans in Massachusetts. So thank you, and I'd now like to invite up Deputy Secretary Gail Bennett to say more.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Governor Healey, for hosting this exhibit and bringing us all together today to celebrate Women's History Month. It is truly my pleasure to welcome you all here today and just recognize and honor the remarkable contributions of women who have served. Each of us in this room who have served, we stand on the shoulders of those who served before us. And those women, their service, their sacrifice, their resilience paved the way for us to be here today and for future generations. And I just want to mention two trailblazing women whose stories are well worth learning if you don't already know about it. One is Major Charity Adams. She was recently featured in the 6888 movie, and Private Minnie Spotted Wolf, the first Native American woman who served in the Marines. And I bring those two women up because their ranks are very different. And it doesn't matter the rank. We all served, and we all have a story to tell, and we all have a story that should be shared and continue to be shared for all the generations to come. I also want to speak, I believe I speak for all of us when I say that we are truly grateful for the partnership that made this exhibit possible, the partnership between EOVS and the 350 girls. So thank you, Mrs. Secretary, for your leadership. And a special thank you to 350 girls founder Mel Bloom. It's your commitment to making women's history visible and accessible, and we really do appreciate this. And especially, like the governor mentioned, during these times, now more than ever, it's essential to recognize and honor the contributions of women veterans, ensuring our stories are told and our impact is not forgotten. This exhibit, these uniforms of the WAC, as the governor mentioned, is from World War II through the integration into the Army in 1978. And it highlights the progress that we've made, but it also reminds us that there's so much more work to be done. And I can't help but imagine the stories these uniforms would tell if they could talk. Imagine that one. Yeah. And while I appreciate a good dress, I can't imagine serving in the military day in and day out, no matter what branch it was, in a dress. So these ladies were, I'm going to say remarkable, but the word that I really want to say is on the back of Christine Tron's challenge coin. So later, have her show it to you. This display is more than a historical tribute. It's a powerful testament to the women who have served and the legacy they continue to uphold, and that we continue to uphold. Governor Healey, your legacy, your advocacy for women and veterans echoes the legacy of Edith Nourse Rogers. She was a Massachusetts legislator and a trailblazer. She helped create the WAC and later, the Women's Auxiliary Corps and then the WAC. This gave thousands of women the chance to serve in uniform. Her work as a legislator laid the foundation for many of the benefits and services that we hold today and we are able to enjoy today. And just as she fought to ensure fair treatment and recognition for women in the military, Governor Healey, you continue that tradition by championing policies that support and uplift women veterans. So again, I say thank you. I was at an event on Sunday and I heard someone say, history is not just in a book, it's humans. The commitment to uplifting women veterans, humans, continues today. EOVS expanded the Women Veteran Network, WVN, to build a stronger sense of community and ensure access to critical resources. And recognizing the need for more representation at the policy level, the governor established the Women Veteran Advisory Committee, ensuring that the voices of women will not only be heard, but that they are prioritized. I'm proud to say that I chair that committee, and we have been working hard, and we will be releasing our first report with recommendations soon. It is a step forward in making sure that the needs of women veterans, at least in the state of Massachusetts, the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, are met. And for those familiar with the work that we've done through the WVN, I'm happy to share that the Deborah Sampson Award nominations are now being accepted. And so if you know a Massachusetts woman veteran who exemplifies leadership, service, and commitment to her fellow service members, please go to the website and submit a nomination. So thank you again. Thank you all for being here and celebrating and reflecting on this important history. And at this time, I will invite Mel Bloom.
Good morning, everyone. To Governor Healey and distinguished guests, thank you so much for having me here today. About 6 months ago, I went into the Bedford VA and asked if I could put so much as a Post-it note on their picture of Edith Nourse Rogers, and just commemorating what she had done for women. And now we are here today in the governor's office celebrating Edith Nourse Rogers and the women veterans who I so admire. My name is Mel Bloom. I am the founder of 350 Girls. I am an Air Force veteran, and I actually shipped to basic training from the Armed Forces Career Center across the common there. But even though I am a born and raised Massachusetts girl, I had never heard of Edith Nourse Rogers, let alone the Women's Army Corps, or any of the other women who served in the Navy, the Coast Guard, or the Marine Corps during World War II until about 10 years ago. So in response to that absence of women's history, my history, I launched 350 Girls in 2022 to honor the legacy of the 350,000 women who served in World War II, to promote and share the legacy of women veterans across all eras and all roles. Our mission is visibility and accessibility, ensuring that women veterans are included in museums, school curriculums, and military heritage courses, and it does not get much more visible or accessible than here in the Massachusetts State House. And I am so grateful and honored to be here today, having the opportunity to talk about these women who paved the way for my own service and those of us in this room. So we are here today to honor Edith Nourse Rogers, who was a civilian, but she is a woman who used her voice and her position to advocate for women veterans like Governor Healey here has. The uniforms here are Edith Nourse Rogers' legacy. During World War II, the expectation was that women would continue to serve as volunteers without pay or benefits, as they had done for the entirety of this nation's military history. A quote from the Boston Globe in 1942 complained, "A woman who needs a uniform to stimulate her patriotism is hardly the best war worker." Despite a lack of official status, though, women have been at the front lines or in support roles since the Revolutionary War, which we celebrate 250 years next month. Women have always been a part of military efforts, but always as volunteers or at best paid civilian employees. In World War I, women had the chance to serve in the Navy and the Marine Corps Reserves, proving women had what it takes to serve as members of the armed forces. It was in World War I that Rogers' passion for our veterans really took hold, as she witnessed firsthand the horrors of war while volunteering as a nurse in France. She knew that women had the capacity for a formal role within the military, and she fought for it, even as she herself would never have an opportunity to serve in a uniformed capacity. After Pearl Harbor in 1941, Rogers reintroduced a bill to establish a Women's Army Auxiliary Corps for service in the Army of the United States. Short title. She initially put it forward in May 1941, but was deemed paranoid as war was not yet at our shores. In May of 1942, almost a year later, it was signed into law. This set the precedent for laws that followed to allow women to serve in the Navy in July, the Coast Guard in November, and the Marine Corps in February of 1943. From December 1941, when the bill was introduced, to May 1942, when it became law, newspapers all over the country reported the number of women who rushed to enlist, quickly surpassing the original number of recruits anticipated for the Women's Army Auxiliary Corps. Originally, they thought they wouldn't even get 15,000. They had 150,000 by the time the war ended. On March 17, 1942, Edith made the following statement before the House of Representatives. If we are to have a total war, there is a very definite place for women in it. Modern war recognizes no limitation of battlefields, no gender of its participants. To win a total war, every resource, every service must be utilized. This is as true today as it was in 1942. Ultimately, 350,000 women would go on to serve in the armed forces during World War II, a total war that we fought across wide oceans and many countries. 150,000 women in the Women's Army Corps, 100,000 in the Navy, 20,000 in the Marines, 10,000 in the Coast Guard, 1,000 in the Women's Air Force service pilots, 11,000 Navy nurses, and 59,000 Army nurses. That is the 350,000 women we are named for. And I'd be willing to bet that many of you here today have never heard of them. The WAC has received some attention in recent months thanks to the incredible film The 688, but largely these stories have gone unknown. The women rarely spoke about their service after the war, and they were considered a footnote in heritage modules at best, briefly mentioned, but for the most part, women veterans like me are unaware of the women who paved the way for our own service. When the war was over, the women could have hung up their uniforms and simply gone home. They'd done their patriotic duty, the war was won, no one would fault them if they'd closed the chapter on military service. Instead, these women campaigned to be allowed to continue to serve. The other woman featured in our display this month is Colonel Mary Halloran, who is a Lowell native like Rogers. She was one of the loudest voices behind the Women's Armed Service Integration Act. Colonel Halloran had been a teacher in Lexington, Massachusetts for 15 years, but when she heard about women gaining a chance to serve, she signed up and was one of the first women accepted for officer candidate school. She was then one of the first WACs sent overseas, where she later served as the first Women's Army Corps separate company commander. She became the third director of the WAC in 1947, and like Rogers, she used her voice to encourage women to continue to serve, even though they were limited in their roles and numbers through the late 1980s. Through the 70s and 80s, women's service was capped at about 15%. Today, 230,000 women serve across all branches, making up 17% of the active armed forces. Whether we know it or not, we women veterans celebrate the service of these World War I and World War II women warfighters in our own modern military accomplishments. When the first women officially enlisted in 1901 and 1908 into the Army and Navy Nurse Corps, they set a precedent that was temporarily paused in 1919 when all but the Army and Navy nurses were discharged after World War I. In World War II, women stepped up to revitalize what the women had started and took it a step further. The women of World War II built on the legacy of service with unwavering courage and dedication. These two women from Lowell that we are here to celebrate and talk about today embody military service and dedication to women veterans, and I am honored and humbled to be a part of this tribute today. And I have the extreme honor to call Governor Healey back up to the podium. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Do you want to say what the different uniforms are of?
How much time do you got?
Why don't you just take a minute and go through, just so folks understand, if you want to start, just tell us what the different uniforms represent.
So we have uniforms here from World War II up through the 1980s, and when we had the opportunity to set up, I wanted to do this timeline for the Women's Army Corps, because as you can see, only one of these uniforms is brown, the rest of them are green. So the World War II uniform was designed to be as simple as possible. The Women Army Corps didn't want to be seen as fashion-focused and frivolous, so they came up with a very basic uniform based on what the men were wearing. It was in the 1960s that the women had the opportunity to get a green uniform for the first time. This was very symbolic that they were no longer in their wartime capacity. They were now part of the Army. They did continue to wear the Pallas Athena, which is the WAC logo, up until they were fully integrated. So the women continued to have separate uniforms through the 80s. This one is one of the first green uniforms that was issued for the women. This is another variation of green. They went through several uniform changes to try and figure out what worked. I think the toothpaste green did not have a lot of longevity, or mint green as to call it. And then we get that last uniform of the Women's Army Corps before they transition to the rest of the Army. But as you mentioned, they were wearing skirts, they were wearing heels. Even when they were given coveralls in World War II for mechanical work, it was still typically worn with a 1.5-inch heel. So these were the typical uniforms, and they were meant to kind of serve and represent the women as conservative, good American girls. So these uniforms are symbolic for a lot of ways, but women took a big sense of pride in wearing a uniform. It's the first time they had been issued a military uniform. So it was something they wore with pride, and it was known as a recruitment tool. It was known that these uniforms gave the women a sense that they were in the military now.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mel, and thank you for establishing 350. It was pretty cool, right? I don't know how many people knew that. 350, 350,000 women serving this country, and it's just, I think, so great what you've done in terms of bringing this all to light, having this exhibit, giving us an opportunity to talk about the incredible history of women veterans in Massachusetts and in this country, and we're going to continue to celebrate and honor our women veterans and all who serve and who have served. So thank you, and with that, we're happy to take any questions on topic. All right. Anything from media? Okay.
I don't have a question, but I do want to make a comment that the VA...
Do you want to just say your name just so the press understands?
I'm John, Vice Commander of the FW, and I get my health care through the VA in Bedford, and it's named after Edith Nourse. And every time I go on there, and I volunteer a couple times a month, and I have my appointments there, I always think of her.
It's great. I also want to make sure we will present a proclamation here in just a moment. But
There was a question.
yep, is a question on topic?
You mentioned earlier why this is so important now.
Yeah.
Because it seems to be an effort to erase women, Black history, especially veterans.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I wondered, is this now about falling to the states to try to continue this and keep this record and keep this history alive?
Well, I hope not. I hope that the federal government changes course and that the Trump administration does what is right and what it should do, which is to restore those images online. We certainly as a state are going to continue to honor all veterans who served. That includes our Black veterans, our Latino veterans, our women veterans, our LGBT veterans. It's so important. And so I'm glad, this exhibit, and I want to thank you, Ayub Talib, for working as a team here to bring this forward with Mel. We actually had this exhibit in the works for Women's History Month for a while now. And it just happens that it is happening at the very same time. Yesterday, we saw the Trump administration literally take offline photographs of any Black soldier, of any Latino soldier, of any Asian soldier, of any female soldier. And so I think it's all the more important that we remind the public and that we honor those who have served. In the same way, we have a beautiful, beautiful memorial statue right outside the gates of the State House, recognizing the 54th Regiment, the all-Black regiment that once upon a time a governor from Massachusetts sent to fight for the Union Army, to fight for this country. And it's important that we honor and always honor that history, and that we continue to promote the idea that we're grateful. We're grateful for everyone who steps up to serve this country. There's no higher duty or calling.
I think we have time for a few more.
Governor, off topic. Are you concerned about the foreign countries taking scientists out of here, out of Boston area?
Absolutely. I mean, what we've seen from the Trump administration are devastating cuts to medical research and to life-saving cures and treatments and to research generally. And so I've spoken out in opposition to that. I think it's a really bad move for this country, because what has happened is you have other governments from China, from the Middle East, from around the world coming into this country, coming to campuses in Massachusetts and basically saying, hey, the federal government's going to cut off your funding and going to take away research. Come to our country, we'll give you a lab, we'll set you up, we'll give you staff, and you can pioneer the new technologies on our shores. That's not putting America first. And it also does such harm to people right now who need medical care and treatment. I was at Boston Children's yesterday visiting young kids and families who are desperately in need of and reliant on the treatments, the cures, the technologies pioneered through that research. And so it just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense, and it's happening in states around this country because all states benefit from funding for medical research, which, by the way, came to be in place and the norm starting right after World War II. The federal government made huge investments in research. That money goes through to colleges and universities and research institutions. And the result over the last 80 years has been the greatest explosion in scientific innovation and discovery in the history of the planet. We need to continue that.
One more.
On a different topic, Governor, there were ICE raids in Chelsea yesterday. It's unclear whether they were looking for criminals or if they were just looking for people who were here illegally. What do you know about those raids, and what are your thoughts?
Well, I only know what has been reported. And I continue to say, look, as Attorney General, I established the New England Strike Force on fentanyl. I worked regularly with local, state, and federal law enforcement and police and investigators to investigate, prosecute, and hold accountable people who were doing criminal things in the region and in Massachusetts. I continue to support that work. And Massachusetts law enforcement will continue to work with federal law enforcement, local law enforcement, when it comes to getting bad guys off the streets. What I've also said, though, is that it is very concerning and troubling when federal ICE agents, assisted by other agents, are working to actively apprehend and seize individuals who have been living here, working here, paying taxes here, raising families here, contributing to our economy. I need to find out more about what happened yesterday, but I know that one of the individuals who was apprehended, seized on his way to work, going to a construction job, was somebody who was given work authorization papers years ago and was following, as I understand it, everything he needed to do in order to become a legal citizen, and that he had crossed actually with lawfully, and in fact had done what he needed to do down at the border initially when he crossed 5 or 6 years ago to get that actual work authorization. So that is not what I understood was going to be happening from the Trump administration. I thought the job was to target bad guys. But when they come after working families, working parents here, that is really concerning. It's obviously concerning for those families, but it's concerning for communities and for the economy. And I encourage people to continue to send their kids to school, to go to work, to go to doctor's appointments, but understand right now the fear is very real. And again, I've said I'll work with anybody when it comes to investigating and prosecuting and taking bad guys off the streets. But we need to draw a line here, and I don't understand what the Trump administration is doing.
Thank
Would
you,
you
everyone.
want
I
the
think
state
we'll
police
present the
to
proclamation
then
now.
step in if, in fact, they were crossing that line?
No, that's not the role for the state police. The state police have different roles and responsibilities here in the state. That's the role of the Trump administration, and I would hope that they would spend time and resources on actually apprehending the bad guys.
Thank you.
Thanks. I think we'll present the proclamation now.
All right, great.
You want all the veterans?
Yeah, great.
All the veterans that are in the audience, please come up.
And why don't we, come right up here.